Welcome to the Maria Liberati Show, where food meets art, travel, and life. So, what does food mean to you? Well, this week, my special guest is author herbalist Lisa Rose, and Lisa wrote a book called Urban Foraging. Yes, so she's going to teach us all, even if you live in the city, how to forage for fresh ingredients for recipes. And her book also includes recipes. And I'm going to share a recipe. It's actually an autumn-inspired recipe that's traditionally from Abruzzo, Italy. It's known as pane cotto. That actually means cooked bread, but if that's a little hint to one of the ingredients in the recipe, and it comes from an excerpt of my latest book, The Basic Art of Italian Cooking Diaries, Seasons. So I'll be reading a little excerpt from the book also. And I just wanted to remind everyone that if you are in the Valley Forge, Pennsylvania area this weekend, that's October 21st and 22nd, I will be doing a book signing and sampling of some recipes from my new book, and actually from all my books, at the Taste Philadelphia event. It will be at the Valley Forge Casino and Resort, and I'll be there with some other celebrity chefs and special guest Kurt Russell. Yes, actor Kurt Russell will be signing bottles of his wine. So it should be a great event. We haven't been able to have it for 2 years, so we're all really excited about seeing everyone again and doing this event. So please come out and join us. You can get tickets if you look up Taste Philadelphia online. So hopefully I will get to see you. Please come up and say hi. Looking forward to seeing you. And as promised, here is an excerpt from my book, The Basic Art of Italian Cooking Diaries, Seasons. And this was from in October I spent in Italy. Today, with the chill of autumn here, pane cotto comes to mind, a dish that soothes the stomach and the soul and takes away the chill of autumn. This is a traditional soup from Abruzzo. The Tuscan version is known as acqua cotto and is similar. Either way, they are sure to become one of your favorite comfort foods for a chilly autumn evening. And here's the ingredients for pane cotto: 1/2 pound of cauliflower, the florets only, 1/2 of a medium onion. I prefer the golden onions or red onions. 1/4 pound of carrots, 1/4 pound of celery, 1/2 pound of potatoes, 1/4 pound of fresh zucchini, 1/4 pound of white beans, 1/2 pound of red ripe tomatoes, 1/2 cup of extra virgin olive oil, 1 pound of crusty day-old bread, 2 garlic cloves, a pinch of thyme, marjoram, a pinch of red pepper or pepperoncino, and a sage leaf. So you're going to soak the white beans overnight. If you're using dried beans, cook them in 8 cups of boiling water with 1 tablespoon of olive oil, garlic clove, sage leaf. Cook till the beans are tender but still al dente. Wash the remaining veggies and peel them and cut them into large cubes. In a large frying pan, place in olive oil and the onion chopped finely. Add in the chopped veggies and saute for 10 minutes. So you want to put in at least a tablespoon of olive oil. Add in the tomatoes that have been seeded and cut. And lastly, add in the white beans with the cooking water. Cook till the veggies are tender. Cut the bread into large cubes. Place under the broiler till golden. Place the soup in a large soup pot and place in the bread cubes. Let that sit for 1 hour, then reheat to medium heat and serve boiling hot. And you'll see the bread actually thickens the soup. Enjoy your pane cotto. And today, my special guest is Lisa Rose. She is the author of, you can see it. Well, it's probably backwards, I guess, but Urban Foraging. It's a beautiful book, and it tells us all about how to forage for all natural things and actually recipes to cook with these things that you can get virtually free if you know how to hunt for them, right, Lisa?
The natural world, especially even in the cities, and people don't think about that,
Yes.
is filled with nature. It really is. And some of that nature is edible. And I think that as we look to expand our connection to nature, this is just a great way to rethink the neighborhoods and the plants in our cities.
Oh, yeah, I love that. I think it just brings such a connection to nature, which I think people are lacking with food. They don't really have a connection to food, and it's so important to have this connection. But I wanted you to tell people you have a really interesting background. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, I've had a very amazing life. It's all been delicious. I've always made it a point to know where to find the good chefs,
There
the
you
good
go.
farmers, the
Uh-huh.
good foragers. So
Yes.
my career has taken me all across the world.
Uh-huh.
I'm from the Great Lakes area, from Michigan
Oh,
originally, and
okay.
our state naturally is, we're second behind California in the diversity of foods we grow.
Oh, I didn't know
Not just
that.
cars. I know. We don't just build cars. We also
Yes.
grow a considerable amount of food.
Wow, I
And
didn't know
the
that.
the Great Lakes actually offers us a very unique um, growing climate
Uh-huh.
for that food. And I was lucky enough to be able to experience the hillsides, the farms, and the fields. My family also, though, is from Flint, and I think if you've watched any current trends, our cities are a space where we want to bring that vitality. Our communities, we want to have healthy communities. We want to have healthy water. We want to have healthy gardens. And so I've, across my travels and my personal life, really I've been drawn back to the city. And at that intersection of food and place, I really
Yes.
like to double click and explore and learn from others. So urban
Uh-huh.
foraging really is not just about the plants in the city, but also how can we learn from each other around about our food traditions.
Yes. And it's so important because, the one thing I lived in Europe for so many years, and I know people go crazy because it's like, oh, the food there, and there's so much tradition, but there's actually a lot of tradition that people just overlook here in the United States of each little town does have its own little culture. And if you can get connected to that, you can get connected to the culture of that place. And we have so many places here in the United States. And this urban foraging, I love because it is it can't be more local than that. So you're teaching people to forage locally and it's an experience that local, the local flavors of that place.
And I
So
love how you talk about that local, even the smaller cities. It's not
yes,
just the tier one, the San Francisco and the New York and the
yes,
Seattle. All very diverse in people and the landscape, the cityscape. But I'm a
exactly.
Belt girl, so I can go, like, I love going across, from Pennsylvania to Minnesota, and really like revisiting some of the traditions that we've abandoned for
Yes,
new technologies, right? So there's
yes,
this dynamic way to really unpack our history through food.
yes, 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 exactly. And I think I learned to do that because when I was younger, my parents used to take my brother and I on these auto trips. We used to go all over the US, and my mom loves to shop, so we would stop at these little places, and you would see foods, and I just got so excited by these different foods that you couldn't find in every place. I mean, now it's a little bit easier to find everything everywhere, but
Everything.
still, exactly, it was just so exciting. So I started realizing, wow, there's all these different little things, and we'd always talk about, oh, let's go to that place because that was delicious and we need to get some more of that or the other. And it's just a lot of fun to be able to do that too and learn about other foods and but yeah, the United States has tons of this little local foods that people just don't realize and they don't take the time to experience. So how did you get the idea to put this book together?
So this book is the result. Actually, I have two previous pieces on wild plants with
Uh-huh.
Timber Press. The
Uh-huh.
first of which is Midwest Foraging, and
Uh-huh.
Midwest Foraging is part of a series, a regional series
Uh-huh.
that brings readers the knowledge to forage by specific region.
Okay.
So it's Midwest Foraging for me. I am an expert in the space, being from the Great Lakes, the broader Midwest region, to focus on plants here. And that extended also then from not just wild edibles and making dinner and whatnot, but then into a second book for Midwest medicinal plants, again, regionally focused, part of a regional guide that focused on, okay, how, with a background in anthropology and a focus in ethnobotany and community health, how can I bring the knowledge forward of, across time, we've used plants not just for food, but also medicine. Again,
Right.
and from a cultural perspective, different indigenous populations, our communities from Europe, from Asia, South America, Latin America, Africa, as humans, we have a history of using plants for both food and medicine. And then this came about, urban foraging came about when pandemic happened,
Oh, there you
actually,
go.
right? And for me, I'm always exploring at this intersection of city,
Yes.
the built environment, and community health. And very fittingly, Timber Press said, "Look, there's no better time than really helping people and providing a tool where people can reconnect, especially if we remember back to those first few months in pandemic. We all were upended, right?
Yes.
And when you mentioned, all foods are available. Well, supply chain today,
Well,
that's not
yes.
true.
No, no, you're absolutely right anymore. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And that was the other reason why I love the idea of foraging, because, if you are limited, yes, you're absolutely right. So, if you learn how to forage, you might find some really interesting substitutes for things, and being able to use some of these recipes for interesting foods that a lot of people probably never even experience.
You're 100% correct. The first few months of foraging or of the pandemic, um, first and foremost, I'm lucky enough to have access to fresh fruits and vegetables out the
Right.
gate. So that's a blessing. But then
Yes.
when I had to think critically about, okay, how do I manage my food budget? How do I manage my recipes? How do I had to tap into that knowledge my mother gave me.
Uh-huh.
We talk about my background. We had a
Yes.
vegetable garden.
Yes.
She canned food, and it was out of necessity. It wasn't out of pleasure,
Right.
right? It was, in the 80s, and we had to make our, food dollar go farther. There were
Exactly.
lots of shifts in the auto industry at that time. And
Exactly.
so I was able to tap into that knowledge.
Mhm.
And I could also go down to my little gully and find the nettles on the edge of the woodland and add that into my stir fries. And it was just the beginning of spring. I could forage, the early spring onions. Again, I'm in the city in Grand Rapids, Michigan now. I'm not in Flint. I'm in
Right.
Grand Rapids, and it's
Right.
still a city.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
But there are these little plants, these little pockets that I could, clip here and there, the wild mints even, clipping the mint and adding it, to my dishes again, because I wasn't going to the grocer. We were all on
Right.
lockdown.
Right.
But I had this ability to still nourish myself, my family, and also my spirit. It kept me vital and connected at a time that was so frightening for a lot of us.
Exactly, exactly, definitely. So I know people are fascinated. There's a lot of people that are fascinated by foraging, but they're somewhat hesitant because they have no idea where to start. So I thought if we could tell them maybe some easy things that if you want to be a sort of first time forager, you could maybe look for. And I love the idea of the urban foraging, because I know most people that live in city environments think that they can't do this, but it is very possible you can still forage as you're telling people. So, but anyway, yeah, so some tips for beginning foragers.
Absolutely. Well, first, you bring up a couple of really great points. First and foremost, in the city, not just botanical knowledge, but we do have to think about our cityscapes and how the land has been used. So, without really digging deep into the soil chemistry and whatnot, that is a consideration to
Right.
give ourselves. Just like if you were a gardener planting a garden bed in the
Right.
city, again, family in Flint, lead, industry, that's all a consideration.
Right.
We just want to think critically of, okay, where am I gathering my plants? What might be upstream, downstream, or in my neighborhood? Doesn't mean that it's a deal breaker, but it's definitely something you want to think about, making sure we're gathering food from places that
Right.
um, won't lead to a significant health issue later, like if something's contaminated with
Yes.
lead, if soil's
Yes.
contaminated with lead.
Yes.
So that's a consideration. Um, I really like to make foraging though easy and accessible. And so some basic, unfortunately, cityscapes are planted with many edible landscape trees that have gone feral. So if we think
Uh-huh.
about crab apples from A to Z, we can find crab apples in so many of our city's plantings. Of
Yes.
course, if you're going to forage, make sure you have permission.
Yes.
And the rule, the rules, right? Don't jump into your neighbor's yard to
Yes.
gather plants without asking.
Yes.
And the same with our parks, right? We do have to give
Yes.
a real consideration to our plant communities to put
Yes.
them, so they can stay healthy. Crab
Yes.
apples, however, think about the crab apple. Like if you're walking down the street generally in the fall, they go unnoticed and then they're
Right.
all over the sidewalk.
Yes.
Cranberries, the very tart and tannic and high acid little fruits, they're usually ugly. They're not really pretty. They
Yes.
qualify what we would call as the ugly apples, right?
Yes.
Those can be made into everything from a chutney to an apple butter to helping brew a hard cider for those of us that are brewing enthusiasts.
Mm.
And this is the crabapple. The malice is in so many parks,
Right.
wild, feral, and planted, and that's just one of them. That as a runner, I love my crabapple bushes. Those are my trail snacks. Those are my neighborhood running snacks, right? So apple, that's a really great one. The next one that I really, really, really love people to think about is the oak tree and
Mhm.
the acorns. And many of us have acorns falling on our roofs right now,
Yes. Yes.
right? Donk, 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 donk. The acorn is one of for North America and actually for peoples across the world, they've nourished our communities across time and space. The acorn is a wonderful complex carbohydrate. It falls, in abundance in really vibrant years,
Uh-huh.
and it can be stored and processed to result in a flour to go into porridge, breads, can also be used as a gruel.
Mm.
The only barrier is that it's bitter.
Okay.
So the elbow grease with the acorn that's required is the leaching. It's the soaking the nuts in a water bath,
Right.
boiling cold water. There's a couple different ways that you can do it. But once you soak the bitterness away and then process it into a flour, it's a very versatile flour and
Yeah.
nut to use in cooking.
Yes. Oh, that's great. So those are easy. I know they're easy, very easy to find. Definitely.
And that's in urban foraging. I really focus on plants that can be found generally in all of the regions of the United States area. So I mean,
Yes.
of course,
Yes.
there's variation by climate, right? What I might have
Yes.
in my neighborhood in Grand Rapids might be different than Miami. It might be different than LA. Might be different than
Yes.
Seattle.
Yes.
But there are definitely plants that love to grow
Uh-huh.
in all of those places. And urban foraging really tries to elevate those wild plants to make it
Yes. And
easy, accessible, and fun.
yeah, no, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was going to say, I noticed I see a lot of people have crabapple trees and they just let them, and they don't even use them. So my suggestion is if it's somebody, maybe you can, if you'd like to pick the crab apple, sometimes, they'd welcome that because you're going to make it cleaner for them and they won't have all these crab apples. So maybe you can say, would you mind if I, picked your crab apples? I mean, sometimes you could do that. I know I have a neighbor that has had this beautiful pear tree, and they were
Oh,
the type of pears that you have to bake.
sure.
And I saw her one day taking all these pears, putting them in a garbage bag. And I'm like, are you going to use these pears? So, to make a long story short, I ended up asking her, and I just ended up taking this gigantic bag of pears home. I made some pear butter. I shared it with her, and she was really happy because I helped her pick the rest of the pears. So, if you have a neighbor that maybe doesn't use these things and it's just dirtying up their yard, maybe think of even asking them, would you mind? Because I'd like to use that. I'd like to try a recipe or something, and I'll share it with you. Sometimes that's a nice way to get connected to community also.
100%. And I think
Yes.
that we're probably sisters with different
Yes.
mothers, but
Oh,
that is
there you
something
go.
I've been known to do. It's like, on a farm recently, an urban farm a few weeks back, doing some garden cleanup, and the farmer needed to just do the garden cleanup so we could dress it with compost and whatnot. And I was like, I need to go over to the compost pile actually and make sure we've gathered all of the edible beans off. I'm like, I can't. For me, it's again, it's. I want to make sure I'm doing the most with the
Yes.
resources that I have.
Yes. Yes. And I hate seeing good food go to waste.
Go
I
to
mean, I know
waste.
you're this, and it's like, oh my goodness, they're
Yeah.
wasting. Do they realize they could be doing so many great things, like delicious things with that? And she didn't realize it. I'm like, oh, those pears will make a great pear butter.
Right.
But anyway, so yeah, definitely, definitely, reach out if you think somebody has some stuff that they're not using.
And at large in part, you're right. It is about knowledge. Not everybody has had the intergenerational passing of down of traditions, of knowing how to
Right.
can, of knowing how to
Yes.
garden, of knowing how to seed save. And large in part, this wasn't because they were really sexy traditions
Right.
or fun, right? That it
Right.
wasn't
Right.
fancy. It was simply
Right.
to survive, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think that knowledge, being able to reconnect to that knowledge that humans have had, across time and space, is really, really important. It is important. And when you talk about food waste, Americans at the grocer or across the year, we waste about 1 out of every 4 bags of groceries.
I believe
And
it.
when you translate that into finances, that's considerable. That's 25% of our food budget that goes out the door, actually just goes large in part into the trash bin, not even into a compost, right?
Yes. Yes.
So slowly adapting these habits and
Uh-huh.
learning how to do these activities isn't just for an adventure, but it'll also,
Yeah.
again, come back to economics. It'll come back to the
Yes.
home economy. And in a time when food prices continue to tick up with inflation costs and scarcity from a supply chain perspective, it's really smart. It's smart living, is what this is.
Exactly. And I think we are, well, now maybe we're, as a people in the US, starting to learn because of all these skyrocketing prices. I think we're learning not to be as wasteful. But I remember, as I said, living in Europe, because it's so
Mm,
much in their tradition. They, especially in Italy, they have all these
hmm.
wonderful ways. And it wasn't because it was an adventure, it was because they had no choice of
Yeah.
reusing leftovers. And
Yeah.
they're so resourceful there with their food. And thank goodness we're becoming that way, hopefully. But that's one of
Aware,
my
at
pet
least.
peeves is, I'll be at someone's home and they're throwing things away because maybe like an apple that has a little bit of a mark on it. And it's like, just cut it
Hmm.
off and use the rest or whatever. I mean, people waste food and they don't realize, but anyway,
Yeah.
yes, to really try to make use of all the good stuff that Mother Nature's providing us.
In
But
abundance.
anyway, oh, I'm sorry, what, Lisa? What?
In abundance.
Yes, in abundance. Yes. So we're almost out of time, and I wanted to. This has been really a lot of fun. Wanted to let people know. So, where can they find you? Where can they find this wonderful book, Urban Foraging?
Urban foraging. Definitely, you'll find me in the cities in the next coming months.
Yes.
I'm going to do the circuits and really reconnect with friends across the East Coast, West Coast, and the middle states, and maybe even go down south when it gets to be a little colder. My book, and you can follow my travels, author lisamrose.com.
Okay.
Is kind of the melange of travels and musings and journeys. I love to recommend everybody reach out to their independent bookseller,
Yes.
nudge them to say, I've
Yes.
heard about urban foraging.
Oh,
Is this something on shelves? So definitely like to direct traffic to our local economies.
yes.
And also, if wherever you are in the United States, also choose the complement guide with the Timber Press foraging series that's local and relevant to you, to make sure you're confident in identification.
Yes.
That will help that double click to make sure that you're foraging safely and effectively.
Yes. Yes. And I think there are certain like departments. I think we have now. I'm not sure if you've heard of. We have a university called Penn State. Have you ever heard of them? They have like a department that you could actually call if you're not sure of something, if it's safe to eat.
Yes.
You call them. They have experts. I forget what they call the department that they have there.
The University Extension Program.
That's it, the Extension Program.
Yep.
Yes, you can look that up.
Fantastic resource.
Yes, it is. It is. You can always look at that, and I'm sure everyone has something like that in their area also.
Very, very good for foraging, gardening, soil testing. And they do a lot of outreach for all of our land grant colleges. A lot of outreach in urban areas, even cooking classes.
Oh wow. Oh wow. That's great. Yeah, I didn't know that also. So do you have a website also, Lisa?
Yes, author lisamrose.com, and that's got all of my musings and journeys across time, not everything.
Right.
Also social media, Lisa M. Rose, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I'm not as often on TikTok. I'm trying to,
Oh, tell me about it. I know.
Be everywhere to everything.
Yes, exactly. You can't be everywhere all the time.
No, but it's a pleasure being with you today.
Yes, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. And we'll put some of that, your website and all that, on the website for the MariaLiberatiShow.com when this episode airs too. Thanks so much,
Lovely.
Lisa. Thank you.
Maria, thank you.
Thanks. And happy foraging.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Maria Liberati Show. And thanks to my producer, Britton Roselle, and this week's special guest, author herbalist Lisa Rose. And as mentioned at the top of the show, please, if you are in the Valley Forge or Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area this weekend, that's October 21st and 22nd, please stop by and say hi. I will be at the Taste Philadelphia Food and Wine Show at the Valley Forge Casino and Resort Center. It's a great show. Lots of other celebrity chefs will be there, and famous actor Kurt Russell will be there. Everybody's excited about that. He will be there signing bottles of his wine. So stop by. Where else could you meet Kurt Russell signing bottles of wine? Wow. So please stop by and say hi. And I will be sampling recipes from my books and also be doing a book signing. Love to meet everyone. So please stop by and say hi. And let's see, you can also find me on my website at marialiberati.com and on Twitter at Maria Liberati, on Facebook at Chef Maria Liberati, on Instagram at Maria Liberati, And let's see, you can find me on Roku, the Basic Art of Italian Cooking by Maria Liberati channel. And did I mention Instagram? That's Maria Liberati. And my book series, The Basic Art of Italian Cooking. My latest book is The Basic Art of Italian Cooking Diaries Seasons. You can find that on Amazon and Kindle. And I also had the pleasure of translating an award-winning book, and I had the pleasure of translating it into English. It's called How Wine Changes Lives, and that was by award-winning journalist Laura Donadoni. As I mentioned, it was an Italian book. I translated it into English, and you can find that on Amazon. And also my recipes were just used for a book for tweens called Graceland's Adventures. It's about a little girl that likes being a detective, and her family likes to cook together. So you can look for those books on Amazon and Kindle as well. And please, if you get to try the recipe of panna cotto, please share a photo and hashtag that on social media, The Maria Liberati Show, and we'll try and share that on the website, themarialiberatishow.com. And until next time, peace, love, and pasta.